Hello, welcome to the Victory Winn Show. I'm Victory Winn. I hope everyone's had a pleasant day today, and I hope if you're in the part of the country where there's severe weather, that everyone is staying safe. Today is my podcast episode number 9, and if you're a return listener, thank you very much. I appreciate it. If you're new and this is your first episode that you're checking out, today's episode's title is Resiliency, and I hope you enjoy it. My contact information is victorywinnenterprises@gmail.com. Or, of course, leave me a message or send me a message on whatever place that you're listening to the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and follow me if you like what you hear, or if you have comments. Again, I'd love to hear from you. So let's get into resiliency. It's one of my favorite topics. I wrote a paper about it in college, and I use it often in my sentences when I'm working with folks, and just to kind of explain when they're asking themselves, I don't really know how I can keep going. I've heard the old adage of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I can honestly say that there were things that I felt like should have killed me, and I'm not sure they made me stronger. So I'm not really a big fan of that saying, but I do understand the good meaning behind it. But I like to say that why I'm a survivor and why I survived is because of my resiliency traits. So what is resiliency? And where does it come from? Are all people resilient? And how does resiliency help us? Those were some of the questions that I came up with when I was preparing for this episode. So I started by just looking up the actual definition in the Merriam Dictionary. And the definition for this type of resiliency is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to adversity or change. And I feel like that's absolutely correct when I think about resiliency, having the ability to recover from something that is difficult, or even just basic changes sometimes for folks requires good resiliency traits. And resiliency, like some examples would be, let me give you that first. There's about 3 examples that they gave by different people and use in a sentence. So the resiliency of nature and humans in the wake of fires, floods, earthquakes, volcanoes, and other destructive forces. Richard K. Snow et al. Wrote that. And then the brewers have shown a resiliency through the seasons' ups and downs, the Associated Press. The project's goal is to develop cultivars with certain traits. For example, better climate resiliency and better tolerance for low water and low fertilizer conditions, by Julie Chow. So those are some different examples of how you might use resiliency in a sentence or describing something. And for folks, like I said, who are experiencing severe weather and do on a regular basis, you have to have a lot of you have to have some resiliency, and quite a bit actually, to face that adversity all the time. It creates resiliency. And I'm going to get more into that as well. So I looked up, like I said, I had researched this. I wrote a paper about it in college, and I had researched it. And so for this episode, I researched it again. And I found this article by Sanju Pradeepa that was written August 9th in 2024. It's SANJUPRADEEPA. And I recommend that you Google because there's 18 characteristics of a resilient person you should know. And I'm not going to read or list all 18 of them. I picked the first 3 to help, just give you an idea of what a resilient person has in terms of characteristics. And you can kind of look at yourself, because resiliency is a multifaceted trait. I'm reading now from what she wrote, that involves a combination of various characteristics. And a resilient person typically exhibits self-awareness, understanding their emotions and reactions in different situations. If you, when you read these characteristics, that's definitely something that I saw in all 18 that is a very our resiliency traits. So I want you to think about that. Think about yourself and some of the adversity you faced in your life and changes that you faced, and looking back on it, do you think, how did I survive that? How did I overcome that? It's so amazing that I'm even here. Those types of things, if you say those things to yourself, well, that's because you developed or already had characteristics of resiliency, or resiliency traits, as we say. You possess perseverance, not easily giving up in the face of adversity. Also, self-compassion is very crucial, allowing you to be kind to yourself during tough times. That's a hard one for me. Sometimes when I'm facing adversity or something's come up, like this past week, I had a couple things happen. First thing in the morning, my power got shut off, and it was just a mistake on my part. I have a certificate because a person that lives with me has to have oxygen 24/7. And so we have a medical certificate that allows us to have the power, cannot ever get shut off. And there's like a discount and everything. Well, the certificate expired like 30 days ago. And I have so many things, no excuses. But to be fair, I really do. And I get things from the power company often just about, like we're going to do this or we're doing this and, or this program or whatever. And I don't always pay that much attention to it. So it was on me. And so I immediately started just, saying this was not having compassion for myself. I immediately started saying things to myself that were not compassionate. I got the power turned right back on, but still I just felt inadequate. And it's interesting, and I brought this up to some of my family and my friends about the fact how it seems like there can be something that is much bigger crisis than that was, because it only lasted for less than 30 minutes. But I feel like like I was saying, other crises that I don't have that big of a reaction to. And then something like that, I was just in tears. I felt completely inadequate. I did not have compassion for myself until finally I basically told myself, like, what are you doing? Why are you not having compassion for yourself? You juggle so many things. You do so many things for people that there's no way you're not going to miss something sometimes. So missing something isn't the end of the world. You were able to correct it immediately. Back off your self-victory. What is this really about? And that wasn't until after I went to pick up my partner from his dialysis treatment, and we had a flat tire on the way back. And I, again, was like bursting into tears and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have this flat tire. And he's like, what is going on, man? Like, this is just, it's okay. We have a spare. We can get it, we're going to get it fixed, which we did, again, immediately. We were right by the tire store for the type of car I drive, and they fixed it. I got a new tire and for free. Like, it was just, it was not even something that I should have been the least bit distraught about, but I was. So it really got me thinking about resiliency and my resiliency, because I know that I am a resilient person, but sometimes I feel like there's things that maybe lead up that we're not being self-aware about, and something will happen, and I turned into just like this crying, self-deprecating person that I had to correct. I had to correct that, which I did, which according to this and the studies that I had back in college, but I don't remember all those exactly because it was a while ago, but that I wrote the paper on resiliency. Those are the traits that are considered, you would say that you are a resilient person. So to go on to say what Sanju wrote, resilience is a complex trait that involves self-awareness, tenacity, self-compassion, a growth mindset, an internal locus of control, acceptance of life as it is, and reliance on a support network. That makes more sense. It involves recognizing feelings and responses in various contexts, being tenacious, resistant to giving up when faced with difficulty. Resilient individuals view obstacles as opportunities for personal improvement and have an internal locus of control, enabling them to successfully navigate life's challenges. And honestly, I feel like that is how I am. For the most part, at least 95% of the time. But it's taken me a lot of work and a lot of time to be able to say that. I also am a person, I have a mantra of acceptance of life as it is, as she wrote. I really do feel like when I'm at a place of acceptance, I'm at my best. Because when you're at a place of acceptance of what it is, this is how it is, or this is what it is, I feel like I have a much better ability to cope with it. I have a much better ability of accepting the fact that it's okay, it's going to be okay, and not spending time talking, saying things to myself that are not nice or kind. And so I feel like I am a very resilient person. I have felt like that after I learned what resiliency meant. So have you ever wondered why some people seem to bounce back from things in life, actually anything in life, and then, really seem to be okay? These resilient people have a secret sauce, a setup of characteristics that help them weather any storm. For example, if it's a job loss, a breakup, or a global pandemic, they manage to keep their heads up and come out stronger. I've always been curious about that. Like, why do some people seem to appear like they can handle anything, and then other folks really don't seem like they can handle much of anything? And in working with clients over the years, I have asked that question quite a few times, and wondered, like, how is it that this person has a very similar story to this person, but one of them seems to just be able to roll with it and go with it and cope with it and accept it and all the things that we just talked about, and still have the tenacity to move forward and look for other things that are going to be better for them. And the other person literally can't do anything. They don't have the ability to even take the next step without hand holding and reassurance through the whole thing. I don't think it's a character defect. I've never thought that. I don't think it means that one is better than the other. I don't feel that way. I just feel like that some of us in we're facing adversity have the ability to learn from it and grow from it and have those traits and develop them even further. And I do feel like when I wrote the paper about it in college, it is something that we develop in early childhood and we continue to develop through childhood. And there are some children who don't get the ability to do that. And sometimes it's because their parents just take care of everything, and they have a childhood where there's not much adversity and things are very consistent for them, and they're not really afforded the opportunity to have much adversity to develop resiliency traits. So does everything that's a trauma result in resiliency? No, not necessarily. Not everything that's difficult or adverse is going to have you, develop resiliency traits. And to go back to what I was just saying, if someone really doesn't have much trauma as they're, developing through their childhood and teen years and whatnot, when would they have the ability to develop resiliency traits? So not everything that's a trauma results in resiliency, and not every person who has not had trauma or even that has the same amount of resiliency as other people. So in this, what I looked up here, as I mentioned, I picked the top 3 characteristics of a resilient person out of the 18. And the first one is the ability to adjust to new situations. So it's this says that you're like a chameleon, adapting to life's ever-changing landscape. Has anyone ever said that to you? Has anyone ever said, "Oh, you're like a chameleon. You're just able to adjust and roll with it, and just go with it"? Those are signs of resiliency traits. When curveballs come your way, you don't crumble, you flex. It's all about rolling with the punches and finding your footing in unfamiliar territory. Whether it's a new job, a move, or an unexpected twist, you've got this knack for recalibrating your compass. You're not just surviving change, you're thriving in it. This adaptability, it's your secret weapon for bouncing back stronger than ever. So think about if that fits you, or if that fits someone you know. And then these are, again, some characteristics of a person with resiliency. The second one is perseverance. You've got to have that never give up attitude. When life knocks you down, dust yourself up and get up. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about how you bounce back. Remember, every setback is a chance to learn and grow stronger. Keep pushing forward, even when things get tough. Your ability to stick with it, no matter what, is what sets you apart. Persistence pays off in the long run. So keep your eyes on the prize and don't quit. So I have to say that this one resonated with me the most, because that was just something I heard from the time I don't even remember, when I remember things that were said to me as a child. Okay, you just got to get up and dust yourself off and keep going. My dad had a lot of resiliency, and still does, has a lot of resiliency traits. He was given many things that were extremely adverse, including having his back shattered, basically when he was not that old teenager, and was getting ready to go play football at a university, and had already had me, and was working in the summer before he and my mom and I were supposed to go. And the next thing you know, he has this major back injury that they said he would never walk again from. And I can tell you, throughout my life, he not only walked, but he played basketball, he played softball, we even played together. And he also played golf, and would go jogging, and just everything the opposite of what they said his life would be like. So he was someone for me to look up to in terms of perseverance and model in terms of, pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move forward. And I think that's a big part of how I developed so many characteristics and of resiliency and resilience. But I have to say that my two younger brothers, I don't feel developed the same amount of resiliency as I do, as I have, I should say. I don't feel like they have as the ability to just, roll with it and not take the setbacks hard every single time. And to keep pushing forward. Sometimes they're paralyzed. A lot of the time when things are really hard and things are adverse, they become paralyzed to the point where they have to, I have to help them, or someone has to help them be able to just even see that it's going to be okay and there is a next step. The third characteristic I chose was the number 3 on the list, emotional intelligence. You've got to be in tune with your feelings to bounce back from tough times. Emotional intelligence is all about recognizing and managing your emotions, as well as understanding others. It's like having a superpower that helps you navigate life's ups and downs. When you're emotionally intelligent, you're better equipped to handle stress, communicate effectively, and build strong relationships. You can read the room, empathize with others, and adapt your approach accordingly. It's not just about being smart, it's about being smart with your feelings. So really take a moment, if you can, and think about these three characteristics of resiliency and how many of them you feel fit you or someone that you know. And that, I think, just helps you have a better understanding of what resiliency is. In my previous episodes, I've talked about domestic violence. I shared my story of childhood sexual abuse, sexual violence, or in that, I think I did definitely develop a lot of characteristics of resiliency to be able to move forward in my life. I have taken the tests where you score. I can't remember the name right now, but I should have looked it up. But when they ask you like your personality test and things like that, and every time when you talk about traumas and things in your life, my score is super, super high because I had a lot of traumas in my childhood. And when I met with the person after that was giving me the test, or therapist, they question a lot of times, like, how are you okay? And are you, have you been okay? And what has, happened in your life? And, each time they've told me that there was so many other different directions that my life could have gone. And I did make a big mistake. I've mentioned that, and I will talk about that in a future podcast. But, that was attributed to the trauma and the things that I experienced as a child. I don't use that as an excuse because I take responsibility for my actions, but I do understand that it contributed to that. And even though I'm very resilient, there have been times in my life when I have just, not wanted to be responsible, or just decided I'm just going to do this, and an impulsive decision that had consequences. So then I learned more and grew more, and I guess developed more resiliency. But that's a hard way to do it. I feel like that's a hard way to do it. So I'd like to ask, you to think about what helps us move forward, or what helps you move forward from difficult events in your life. And I wrote down some things that I think help. The first thing I wrote was counseling. I'm a big fan of that. I do think it does help. Also, diet and exercise, hobbies, having a hobby, and spending time with your family and friends, and then finding joy. One of my previous episodes was titled Finding Joy. I like to use that term rather than self-care. But, where do you find joy? Is it a walk outside, a walk through your neighborhood, taking your animal for a walk? You have a dog or something. I've seen people take their birds and cats, so it's not just a dog. But, just go for a nice walk. Or, volunteering somewhere and doing something to help others. That can also be a great way to help you move forward with difficult events. Feeling like you're making a difference, especially if you're in a natural disaster and there's a lot of work to be done. At the end of it, stepping back and looking at what you did to help, and maybe that would help you develop some resiliency traits in addition to the ones you already have, just surviving the natural disaster and then being able to move forward. Also, there's a word, glimmers. We call it glimmers. And glimmers is, rather than focusing on the trauma or focusing on the adversity, focus on the positive things. So when you have a glimmer and it's something that's positive, pat yourself on the back, focus on that, rather than just staying in a place where you think about trauma, staying in a place where that's all it is. And finding a way to trust it's all going to be okay. That is a big part, I feel like, of resiliency. Just trusting that it's going to be okay, having faith that it's going to be okay. And I recently had a conversation, actually today, with my daughter, because she's got a lot of changes going on. Her and my grandchildren need to move from their home. And in Portland, Oregon, there's a housing shortage, which in a lot of cities around the country, that is the case. And so just trying to find an affordable housing, a house or affordable housing for them. She's a person who is going to worry about that, even when she tries not to. So I talked with her today, and she said that, she said, it's one thing I really don't like about myself when I'm in these situations where there's all these, changes, is just not being able to necessarily trust that it's all going to be okay. And so, my suggestion to her was to think about the glimmers and the positive things, because so many times when we've been faced with change and adversity, it has been okay. And it's even when we thought it wasn't for a while, it really is. And that's because she's very tenacious. She's very proactive. She does have the ability to use her skills to find resources and whatnot. She has a very strong community of support around her and her children. So I asked her just to focus on that. And at the end of the conversation, she said, yes, that I have faith and I do trust that it will be okay when I stop and just basically get out of her head. So sometimes you need someone to do that with you. So I hope that you have someone in your life that if you say these things to them, they're able to remind you how resilient you are and that you are going to be okay. We can't always say when, but in this situation, she's found housing, she's applying for it, she's working on it. It's going to be okay. And so just, focusing on those kinds of things, like, at your worst moments, your worst time, you're still here. So it was okay. And you got through it and you are a survivor. We talk about survivors and we call people that have survived tremendous things: domestic violence, sexual violence, natural disasters, the loss of a child, the loss of a partner, a spouse. You're a survivor of those things because you're here. And that is something to always try to remind yourself about, is that I survived. I did. And I am still surviving, and I'm thriving. Not just surviving, but are you thriving? And if you're not thriving, then think about some of the things that can help you do that. And maybe counseling should be at the top of the list, or checking it out. How much time am I spending with my friends and family? And are they healthy friends and family? Do they help me when I'm feeling down, or do they just, make me feel more inadequate? So those are things that I really encourage you to think about. And with that, I want to say the song of the day. So my song of the day was recommended by my son, and it's actually a version of I Will Survive, but it's by Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, which I love. So that is the song of the day, I Will Survive by Aretha Franklin. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.